Hello, and welcome to an Unconventional Guide to Success, where we are exploring concepts and discussing real life examples showing that the path isn't linear and the journey to success is self defined. My name is Linda Misegadis,
And I'm Scott Montgomery.
and we will be your guides. You have another story that kind of ties to your real estate in how
I
you
do.
actually met one of your coaches, Gretchen.
Well, one of the yes. So Gretchen and Paul King, Gretchen Krampf and Paul King are spectacular people, and I met them selling their condo. I was really diving into real estate in the 2005, 6, 7 era. I had investment properties. I was learning about the taxes of it all, and I was learning that being a real estate agent is certainly a good way to make some money outside of my corporate jobs.
Right.
Anyway, Gretchen reached out to me because I had showed her condo. It was in a hot spot in Arlington, Virginia. I had kept leaving my business card, and I was looking for social capital, so I was leaving my name around town in the
Got it.
way that one would as a
Right.
realtor. Here's my
Yeah.
card again.
Yeah.
I wonder if you're going to need a new realtor, kind of
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
So one day she needed a new realtor, and she called me and said, "Your card has been on my table 4 times in the last 4 weeks. My own agent, I don't know, has shown this property as much as you. I'd like to talk about listing it with you."
That's awesome.
So opportunity surfaces from social capital. I
Yeah.
list her condo. I get it sold. We have a buyer come in, transaction complete. We hit it off as humans. Turns out her husband worked for the Gates Foundation. Turns out these are successful business people that had a pied a terre here in Arlington, not a condo that they lived in.
Got it.
And they were certifying with Georgetown as leadership coaches, an
Wow.
emerging industry that is one that I'm very involved in as well now too. That's growing from 90 people in the 80s to I think 140,000 now or 27,000
Wow.
now. Some
Oh my
crazy amount of
gosh.
leadership coaches.
Yeah.
So I was talking to to Gretchen on the phone the day my twins were born.
Oh my goodness.
We didn't have texts, but we had just started texting, and Caitlin sent or called me with a cryptic message that she was feeling pains. I said to Gretchen, "I got to go." And the twins were born 3 hours later.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Fast forward, I got my first corporate consulting opportunity.
Okay.
And I didn't know that I was going to be able to build a business around it, but I felt like I was. And I was talking to Gretchen about how could you coach me in your experiences and our trust factor
Yeah.
in what you could do to help me help myself build a business. And so as coaches, it's about helping one reveal their best solution for themselves.
Absolutely.
You're not advising, you're not prescribing, you're not consulting them. You're facilitating a very structured conversation around self-discovery. I
I
met
like
her at
that.
Starbucks. Her husband, Paul, was there. Remember, husband and wife, kite string
Yeah.
dynamic could apply.
Yep.
And we talked about this, and I engaged them. And I said, I need some help with a SWOT analysis. I need some consulting, and I need some coaching all in one.
Yeah.
And so it began. Fast forward to 2017, shortly after I met Jack Nicklaus.
Uh-huh.
Gretchen says, "Your emotional intelligence around building a business is getting stronger. From my lens, you should really consider becoming a coach yourself."
Wow.
I enrolled in the coaching program. I went through it for 6 months. I did the recordings. I followed the directions, and I became certified as a leadership coach with George Mason University and then with the International Coaching Federation a year later.
Okay.
Just past COVID, I just engaged one of the instructors from that class to work for WorldGate as a contractor, as a coach for some of my clients,
Oh wow. Okay.
because I didn't let that social capital opportunity go by. And we
Right.
had a connection that I paid attention to that fostered itself in business 4 years later after COVID.
Wow. Isn't that an incredible journey along the way? And it really does show the importance of those connections because, similarly, if I look back and kind of reflect on my own life and
Yeah.
where, like, if I think about my first job and then how the relationships that I developed there, when one of my very first jobs was with a CPA firm, and when one of the CPAs left to go work for another company, he called me and said, "Hey, I think you should come over here. There's a great opportunity."
Right?
And then going there, I met some more amazing people. And then one of those people left to go work for another company. And then they called me and said, "Hey, I want you to come." And it's kind of funny when I reflect back because I never put those connections together until you and I started talking about all of this and realizing, holy cow, all of those relationships along the way, because I can create like a little
Yes.
path. It's not straight. It's definitely all over.
Unconventional.
Oh my goodness. And I can totally create this path forward to how I got here today is because of all of those people along the way. And while we're not like best friends or anything like that, we still stay in touch, or if I see them out on LinkedIn, I congratulate them on things that they've done. And just kind of these little, that social capital where I still nurture the relationship, even though they're not like, they're not actively part of my life in any way today. But if I needed something, I actually feel like I could pick up the phone and call any one of them, and we'd pick up right where we left off. And
And to
so
me, that's
that's what I
success.
love about this.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's to me, that's success. And further, remember, it's the who you just talked about, not the what.
Yeah.
The
Yes.
product is
Yes.
ever evolving. The product
That
is
is so
ever
true.
evolving. And I didn't create, I'm not smart enough to create. I don't have anything tangible that I'm going to put a patent on. But what I
Right.
do
Yeah.
have is social capital. And I've paid attention to that from a very young age. And the people I was involved with 30 years ago that helped me, 30
Yeah.
years forward now I'm helping them. And
Yeah.
that in turn helps me.
Right. Yes, exactly. No, it's all linked together. Well, and talk a little bit because when we think about coaching, we always just kind of think about it in the context of sports more, right? It's like
Yeah.
we have coaches in sports. We don't think about having coaches in life. And so talk a little bit about like why that's important and maybe as a young person, like how do I find that coach and how do I make the investment? Maybe I don't have any money. So, or I have a little bit of money. So how do I find that person and what's the importance of it?
So I think for me, it's not the word life coach. For me, it's the word executive coach and leadership coach that I
I
hone
like
in
that.
on personally,
Yeah.
because there are life coaches and there are coaches. The interesting thing about the industry itself is, and I'm unpacking this ironically to finish up my degree. It's my final paper at the University of Virginia that I graduated in May.
Congratulations.
Thank you. That's
Yeah.
a self bucket list, but it's also just complementary to taking these lessons I've learned, packaging them up, and putting them into a degree. And one of the things I'm doing is a study on the leadership coaching and its effects on business
Got it.
and leadership. And to that
Okay.
end,
Interesting.
I've I've unpacked that the industry of coaching, and I don't have all the numbers exact, but it was in the late 80s that there were a handful of people that were expanding outside of sports coaching.
Okay. Gotcha.
Today, the International Coaching Federation puts the rules and regulations and standards and or what's the word competencies
Okay.
around the actual tactics of coaching.
Got it.
And once you've proven that you can live within those competencies, you are then certified in the industry. And I want to say I know for a fact there are at least tens of thousands of leadership coaches out there certified now. And it's really an emerging practice. And its best attribute to me is that it's self-prophecy. It
Got
facilitates
it.
self-prophecy.
Yeah.
You're not coming in and telling someone how to do their job. You may get the opportunity to share your perspective or what you're
Right.
hearing to mirror back to your coachee. But coaching is about self-discovery. It's about facilitating a conversation that helps one unpack where they want to take things.
Got it. Got it. No, that
And
makes
it's really
sense.
it's a fascinating competency. And there are many creative ways to get a coach. I found my coach by selling a condo.
Right. Yes.
But there are also people that do philanthropic coaching. There are people that have different pay grades for who they're trying to reach in their target audience.
Got it. Yep.
I'm clearly trying to hit the young entrepreneurs and the emerging leader sector. Those are
Yeah.
the people that I think need these value added skills to their
I
already
agree.
emerging careers that
Yeah.
might get overlooked on the what instead of the who of their
Yes.
lives and the
That's a
head
great
instead
point.
of the heart.
Yeah.
So just recalibrating it, that's my coaching philosophy and style. And then having people want to plug into that, depending on where they're at, I might adjust my hourly rate.
Sure. 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 Yeah.
Coaching can also be a barter system scenario. I know one of the recipients of my coaching didn't have any money. He was a personal trainer. I talk about him in my coaching chapter.
Yeah.
He didn't have, 150, $200, $1,000 an hour,
Right.
to pay me to coach him out of or into his new career, or hold those competencies for him.
Right.
Instead, he created training plans for me. So I would take his training plan and I would turn it into an hour worth of coaching. The other thing I would offer in that's really important is coaches, and for our listeners, they're not dime a dozen. There is a distinction between advising, therapy,
Yeah.
coaching. Coaching is about self-discovery, and this is about you unpacking what you want to do while someone helps you hold the conversation in a certain structure.
That makes a lot of sense.
Advising is me saying, hey, pay me and I'll tell you exactly what you should do and how I think you should do it. They're very
Yes.
different and
Yeah.
they complement each other. You
Yeah.
can walk the line as a coach and say, hey, my experience begets this. We can do a strengths, weaknesses, threats, opportunities conversation, or we can do a tell me where you want to take this conversation.
Right. Right.
One
That
begets
makes
the
a
other.
lot of sense.
Last point I'd like to make for young emerging leaders or young entrepreneurs, emerging leaders, is if you're going to get a coach, invest in it, because you have to. Don't take free coaching. It's not going to be as effective and you won't be as invested in it
Yeah. That's great
necessarily.
advice.
I think for the coaches who are doing that, they need to see some sort of a skin in the game, because
Yeah.
it'll give
Yeah.
you the autonomy. It gives you the autonomy to take your answers further. They're not gifts,
Absolutely. No, I
not
think that makes
advice.
a lot of sense. Yeah, no, I like that. I think that's great advice and really helps because you're right. When you don't, when you're not willing to put some skin in the game, you're not really in it and they're not really in it. And so you're not going to gain anything from that experience at all. Hey, talk a little bit though about like the difference between a mentor. So that's a big thing these days in corporations. It's this mentorship programs and developing. So as I'm a new person coming into a company, I'm gonna assign you a mentor, and I kind of struggle a little bit with that because in my life, mentors have been people that I have maybe sometimes accidentally come across. Where I'm like, wow, I really dig that person, and so I think I could learn something from them and they kind of become my mentor.
You just
But
said the
this,
key word. You just said the key word.
what
I
did
can,
I say?
you said I can learn something from them.
There you go. Thank you.
A
Yeah.
mentor is something that you learn something from someone. A coach helps you self-prophecy.
That's really good. So how would you give advice like if I'm that person who is in a new company, cuz one of the people who works on my team, I was really impressed because she sought out immediately and found a mentor in the company, and it's a perfect mentor for her because their personalities are very opposite. And so she can learn a lot from this person and helping her with because she is similar where she's got this big personality and sometimes that doesn't always fit.
Yeah.
And so
Tell me
it's like
about that. How does that
yeah,
work?
exactly. And so and we always talk these days that this buzzword about being our authentic self and that. And
Yeah.
so but there is this balance too in the work world in
Yeah.
trying to figure out what that really means. And so if I'm a young person, I'm starting in a company, how would you recommend, like, how do I find that mentor? How did you find your mentors?
I wouldn't personally pick someone that's opposite of me to mentor me personally,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I would want to say, how do you deal with your gregarity? Because you're gregarious
Got
too.
it. Okay.
And
Yeah.
I would say, how did you get here? I.e., title of my book. But I'd say, how did
Yes.
you get here? What are your experiences? And would you share those for me free of charge? I wouldn't pay a mentor.
Right. No, I
I'll buy
totally
you
agree.
lunch for your time, but
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
not gonna put skin in the game to have a structured conversation and tap into your competencies training.
Yeah.
There's a big
Yeah.
distinction between coaching and mentoring.
I like that. And I think that's really important because I do think that sometimes people mix those together, and thinking that they're one and the same. And I like what you just said there. I wouldn't pay a mentor because, they aren't trained to coach me. And in a mentor relationship, I think that is more you can just kind of take what you can, right? It's just
Yeah.
nuggets of things. You're going to ask questions, you maybe learn something, and then to your point, if there's something I can learn from that and take it, then that's good. But a coaching is really investing in yourself, right? I think
Correct.
it's a
Correct.
much different approach. So
There's a
yeah,
competency, and that's the key word with coaching. And I'm not saying
yeah,
competency is what they call the rules around how you were trained to hold a conversation and move it through a
right,
proven system with
yeah,
psychology and heart and head applied in one. It's very complex. There are coaches out there that aren't certified.
right,
I am not a person that believes that an emerging coach is qualified. Maybe
Yeah.
someone more senior could figure that out and not necessarily certify because they know the competency, understand the difference.
Yeah.
A mentor is very different. It's for me, it's aspiration, it's emulation, it's tell me how you did it, give me advice for free versus
Yeah.
versus a consultant that would say give me advice and solve my problem and I'll pay you.
Right. Yes. Yes. Yeah. No, I
There's a
think that's a really
dimension
good distinction. Yeah.
and then there's dimensions inside of each. So
Absolutely.
I think I spell that out in the book, and I think it's also really important. I think people should get a coach. And I think a
Yeah.
good coach who's been trained well should help you expose your own opportunities. And I think they'll also know the tools to help you work in peak performance because through the competencies of training to be a coach, you learn about journaling, meditation, bringing your best self forward to hold that conversation for your receiving client.
Yeah.
And
No.
and those are all very different things than saying, "Hey, come to this meeting and watch how I handle this.
Right. Right.
You're my
That's yeah.
mentor, and next time you can do that."
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think it's a good way for us to kind of bring things to a close today. And there's one of the things that you also say, is that no one does it alone, and that there's no such thing as a self-made person. Someone has affected your life along your journey, right?
Embrace it
Yeah.
and
No.
embrace that. I think that's really how I got here. I embraced it. I honored it. I continue to honor it in this dialogue. And I think I tell
Yeah.
the stories about it in the book so that people are enlightened that that is a huge piece of the equation. If I can find success with the deltas I started with, and that's where I put my energy, I still don't have a degree
Yeah.
in a 4-year degree, then then I want to share that with people. And that's really important.
I think so too. Well, I can't wait for our next episode where we focus in on habits, goals, mindset, self care, because that's we've created the foundation, right? Which you've got
Yeah.
to have this conversation around these relationships and partnerships and really kind of thinking through it. That's our foundation, and then from there, you've got to figure out, okay, now what do I do with all of that, and how do
Right.
you do all of that? And I think the way that happens is through what we're gonna talk about in our next episode is developing habits and goals and kind of creating that mindset. But also along the way, got to have some self care too, right? You and I
Yeah.
talk about
Oh,
that all the time.
yep. You got to take a minute and take a breath. And I think
Yes.
that's really critical. And it's funny when I tell people I believe in that, and then they go apply it, and they're like, "You were right."
We hope you enjoyed this episode of An Unconventional Guide to Success. In each episode, Scott and I will share experiences and relationships that have shaped us. Our next episode, we will dig in and start discussing the benefit of habits. You'll never change your life until you change something that you do daily. The secret to your success is found in your daily routine. John C. Maxwell. An Unconventional Guide to Success is an inspirational, motivated series hosted by Scott Montgomery and Linda Misegadis. Recorded on Riverside.fm. Music, editing, and production by Logan Misegadis. Check out Scott Montgomery's new book, How Did You Get Here, and all the helpful related materials at www.howdidyougethere.com. At the end of each episode, we would like to leave you with a few questions offered to guide you in your personal exploration of how relationships and experiences are building your success. Take time to reflect and write about what arises. Who are the mentors you have had or had in your life? How could working with a coach help you achieve your goals? How could you incorporate coaching into your path towards success? Thank you for joining us on our journey. If you would like to reach out to us, our contact information is in the show notes.